Hey guys, Tim here, back again for Droid Life, this time bringing you another video review, but for the Honor 8 smartphone. The Honor 8 falls in that same tier device we don't give too much coverage to, sort of that sub $500 category, but the Honor 8 has a lot to offer. If you don't already know, Honor is what's known as a E brand for Huawei, the same company that brought you last year's Nexus 6P and this year's Huawei P9. In fact, the Honor 8 is a lot like the P9, features really nice hardware, as well as that dual rear-facing camera on the back. We're going to be getting into a lot of stuff, so let's get right into it. This is our Honor 8 review. During my time with the phone, I definitely developed a love-hate relationship with it. While I love the in-hand feel, given the size, and as well as the in-pocket feel coming from larger phones, the phone software is a lot different from what you would find like on a stock Android Nexus device or Pixel device, or even a Galaxy device with TouchWiz from Samsung. Specs on the Honor 8 include a 5.2-inch Full HD 1080p display, Huawei-made high silicon Kirin 950 processor, 4 gigs of RAM, USB Type-C, 12-megapixel dual camera system on the back, 32 gigs of built-in storage, as well as microSD support, a 3000 mAh battery, non-removable, rear-facing fingerprint reader, and Android Marshmallow. As for this phone's competition, that would have to be the Moto Z Play, OnePlus 3, and Axon 7. However, do note that the Moto Z Play is exclusive to Verizon, at least for the time being. This phone is a lot sort of similar in terms of specs to those devices, but they differ quite greatly in terms of the overall software experience that you're going to find on the Honor 8. A lot like Samsung's TouchWiz, Honor baked in a ton of add-on features for the Honor 8, things like Smart Key, which lets you set actions for the fingerprint button, an IR blaster for controlling thousands of different media devices like TVs and set-top boxes, motion control, and mini screen view. For motion control, whoever engineered this feature was actually able to have the display recognize the difference between finger taps and your hand's knuckles. So when you place your knuckle on the display, if you can draw letters, which will open corresponding apps. So for example, if I draw an M, it will open the music app. If I draw a C, the camera opens. All of the letters and apps can be customized, which makes this a very nice and unique feature. In terms of the overall performance from the Honor 8, I've been pleasantly surprised. And it does have that Kirin processor, octa-core processor, 4 gigs of RAM. But during my day when I'm playing games or scrolling through apps and stuff, I don't really get that sense of lag or jank that you would find on other Android devices. And sometimes jank can be rather prevalent. In fact, the phone was so sort of speedy when I first booted up the first time a few weeks ago. I actually went into the developer settings to see if Honor maybe tweaked those animations when going through different applications, and come to find out they didn't, so I was actually pretty surprised. The phone just felt so snappy. I was like, well, there's no way, but it actually is quite speedy, so Honor did a good job at tweaking the overall performance. Another area Honor nailed this phone, in my opinion, is the design. I happen to have the blue model, which certainly makes it a bit more eye-catching, but each model carries a 15-layer glass body mixed with a cool metal siding. As you probably already noticed, the fingerprint reader is on the backside, just like it is on the Nexus 6P and Huawei P9. Personally, I love this positioning, as my index finger is always placed on the back of a phone when I'm holding it. I guess you can't really discuss design without touching on the size either. Even with a 5.2-inch display, the Honor 8 is really compact. It feels a lot like a Galaxy S7, and to me that's a really good thing, since the S7 is one of the better in-hand feeling devices I've personally ever held. Another aspect for the Honor 8 that I've been very pleasantly surprised with would be the battery. The battery is not too huge, but I mean, for a device of this size, it is actually quite large at 3000 milliamp hours. My typical day, about 7:30 a.m. to maybe 10:30, 11 p.m. at the latest, and not one day, maybe except for a day where I was playing Pokemon Go, did I have to grab a charger maybe around 6 p.m. But other than that, I can get through a full day playing my games, searching the web, constantly check Twitter and Instagram, and get through a day just fine. Thankfully, there is fast charging, so even if I do run out of battery during the day, I can get about 50% of battery life in just 30 minutes of charging. So for me, that's not bad at all. While there is plenty to like on the Honor 8, there are a few pain areas that I think Honor can look to improve on future devices. The first area for me would have to be the software. There's a lot of these nifty add-on features like motion control and voice control, but the phone can't even handle notifications properly. For example, if I download a banking app that notifies me every time I make a purchase, the Honor 8 simply doesn't display that notification. In another instance, if I have a new app installed and a notification does pop up, I have to allow the app to send me notifications, which happens pretty much every time I download a new app from Google Play. And this is not an Android thing, it's purely an Honor thing. I haven't had this problem on any other devices. You may have noticed that I haven't spent much time talking about the dual 12 megapixel f2.2 shooters on the backside of this phone, one for color, one for black and white. And honestly, I think that's because they're not all that good. You know, I spent a lot of time taking pictures with the device, and a lot of photos ended up coming sort of disproportionate in terms of lighting, and color accuracy was not all that great, especially when we compare it to top devices from, say, LG, Samsung in the S7, Note 7, as well as even the Nexus 6P from last year. On the upside with the camera, you can take a few good shots if your lighting is just right, but in terms of whipping the phone out and hoping that your lighting is perfect for snapping photos, it just doesn't quite compare to phones like the Galaxy S7 or Note 7 or even the LG G5. I've taken a few shots on the Huawei P9 too, and even that phone delivers a much better experience in my opinion. You know, as for ways to improve it, if the autofocus caught a speed boost and the sensors weren't so sensitive to light, it might be much better. You know, I don't claim to be a camera expert, but I have taken quite a few shots, and if we're talking about just going out and snapping photos with your phone, it's not the best experience. As for the app software, there's a lot of fun stuff you can play with, like custom aperture settings for like a wide aperture. There's built-in filters for snapping shots that, you know, look funny. And there's also custom audio controls for a more hands-free shooting experience. There's a couple little tidbits that I wanted to touch on that aren't really big ticket items, but something that any potential buyer will notice. First, the fingerprint reader on the back is actually quite fast. It clocks in a little under half a second, 0.4 I believe, so it is rather fast to unlock your device. Also, there is expandable storage, so if 32 gigs simply isn't enough, you can always just throw in a micro SD card and you'll have plenty of storage. Also, the external speaker on the bottom, not the best speaker on the market. It is okay, puts out a little bit of sound, not too much bass, not too much lows, but the highs are there, mids are there, so it sounds okay in that department. So let's talk about where you can get this phone and the support you can expect from Honor. Right now, you can find the phone at a few online retailers like Amazon and Best Buy, as well as the Honor website. But make note, though, that the Sapphire Blue model that I have is only sold through Best Buy. And the phone does come unlocked, so any major GSM network like T-Mobile or AT&T is going to work just fine. But you won't have any support on Verizon or Sprint, so be sure that your carrier is supported for unlocked GSM phones. As for software support, I think that's going to be a very critical area for Honor to prove themselves to the US consumers that they're going to want to, buy their first US flagship device. Right now I've had the phone for a few weeks and I've gotten a couple of minor Android updates. I think it was 2 security updates, monthly security updates. So while there's nothing wrong with that, who knows when you can expect Nougat. I mean, if they plan on baking in a lot of these features on top of EMUI, then it could be until next year when you receive Nougat. And personally, as like an Android fan first, that will be an issue. If you can wait for those sort of items, then that's great. But I will say Honor, when they announced the phone, alongside announced a partnership with XDA. So I think we can expect maybe a healthy developer community that's going to be putting out custom ROMs, custom kernels, and maybe even bringing stock Android to the device, which in my opinion would be super sweet. But until then, we just don't quite know. So, is the Honor 8 the smartphone for you? Well, that's a really good question. For me personally, the software and the camera leaves a lot to be desired. But in terms of overall value, I think what EMUI does bring, as well as the overall kind of hardware experience and even that battery life, definitely make it a worthy contender against other devices you might see on the market currently, like the OnePlus 3 and Axon 7. But in just my circumstance, I felt like I had to relearn Android with that EMUI skin. And frankly, that's never something I want to do. Like, I've known Android as it is for what feels like a decade now. So having to relearn stuff, trying to dive into a settings menu and find certain features that I don't know about on the phone has been a real struggle for me. But you know, if you think that some of the features that I highlighted might be good for you and you want to check them out, it's only a $400 phone. That's really good, especially with the higher price of Pixel devices coming out. So people might be looking for phones like the Honor 8 to sort of maybe carry them through until next year when other devices come out. So it's definitely not a bad option. The Honor 8, I've enjoyed using it, but I'm definitely ready to try something else out.